I built this impressively large modern industrial structure for my model railroad layout, and I'm going to show you how on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things. One of the problems that many of our model railroad layouts face is that we have limited space, and that can lead to many or all of our structures being too small and thus creating an unrealistic or even toy-like kind of a look. One of the answers to this problem is to limit the number of structures or industries on our layout and create one or two larger structures that can help add to that sense of realism as they really look like the type of structure that a railroad would serve. Well, today I'm building the largest building on my layout. It is a modern industrial warehouse and distribution center. And the structure that I'm building isn't even rail served in real life or on my layout, but it does help create a sense of the industrial park setting in which it sits in Saginaw, Texas. This is a really cool build, even if I do say so myself. So let's head on over to Saginaw and get started. This video is brought to you by Midwest Model Railroad. With 15,000 square feet of inventory and one-day shipping, whether in person or online, they are your one-stop model railroad shop. MidwestModelRR.com, link in the description. Here you see the space that I'm filling with this project. It is inside a curve in Saginaw, Texas. The area is a combination of commercial and industrial, and I need something here that will fit in with that zoning, but is not rail served. Having done a little research of the many warehouses and distribution centers in this area, I found a Mattel toy distribution center that I thought would be a fun choice and that was just what I was looking for as far as the type and style of structure that I wanted. As you see, the area needed a little filling in, which I had put off until I decided exactly what I wanted to put here. I added some plywood cleats under the present bench top around the hole in the bench top, then used a large scrap of 1-inch thick green extruded foam to fill the space. This was an odd-shaped hole, as you can see, but marking and cutting this puzzle piece out of foam was fun and a little bit of a challenge. I glued the foam in place with some latex caulk, the exact same stuff that I use when I adhere track to roadbed, and I weighed it down for several hours until it was dry. While the caulk was drying, I played around with a number of different options as to the size, position, and orientation of the building. I played around with this decision for a long time and actually didn't decide on the final position until after the structure build was fairly well along and I could place it in the scene and see firsthand how it looked. When the caulk had dried, I needed to level up this new piece of foam with the adjacent piece of pink foam and the plywood top, as there was about 3/16 of an inch difference. To reduce the mess of this step, I started with a hot wire foam cutter from Hot Wire Foam Factory to remove the bulk of the excess. I've had this set of hot wire cutters from Hot Wire Foam Factory for several years, and I love the way they work. They come in a variety of styles for different applications, including pencils, straight cutters, and this, my favorite, freeform cutter. I'll link a few of my favorite hot wire tools in the Amazon Pick of the Week in the description down below if you'd like to check them out. I do want to warn you, however, that when cutting extruded foam, like the pink, blue, or green stuff, it's important to work in a well-ventilated room as they create gases that may not be healthy for you. Best is to cut them outside if possible, but if you're stuck inside of a room like I was here, be sure and work with the windows open and a fan pulling the fumes outside. When I had removed all that I could with a hot wire cutter, I cleaned up the scraps and then used a Sureform tool and vacuum to finish leveling and smoothing the area. You can also do this with a serrated steak knife, a hacksaw blade, a wood rasp, or some really coarse sandpaper. Keeping the vacuum running as you plane or sand the foam really helps to reduce the mess, because foam dust is high in static, it sticks to everything, it gets everywhere, and it is a pain to clean up. When I was happy with the job, I vacuumed the entire area very well. Next, I smoothed the rough areas and filled some gaps with Sculptamold. I mixed the Sculptamold to a thick, paste-like consistency, applied it with a putty knife, and then used an artist's trowel to smooth it out, and a metal straight edge to make sure I was keeping everything reasonably level with the surrounding plywood. I let this layer of Sculptamold dry for about 24 hours, then applied a bit more to one area that was a little bit of a low spot and filled a few more gaps in the surrounding scenery base. At this point, I turned to the warehouse itself. I kit bashed it using 2 Walthers modern concrete warehouse kits. These precast tip-up style buildings are very popular in industrial and commercial buildings in the area and era that I model, and this kit is perfect for the style of structure that I was looking for. Using 2 kits allowed me to build a large structure that I wanted, but I'll have plenty of parts left over for a future build of a background flat or a smaller building. I started by opening up both kits, accounting for all of the parts, and perusing the instruction sheet for helpful tips. I then began selecting my desired wall sections and cutting them from the sprues. The most important element for me in this structure was to have a large number of truck loading and unloading bays. These wall sections with pairs of doors were exactly what I wanted. I used 5 of these sections, so 10 loading and unloading doors on the long main wall of the building. I also included 1 oversized door at the end of the row of doors. The beauty of these kits is that the wall sections are modular, so you can configure them to provide whatever shape or arrangement you want with very little need for modification. As always, I carefully cut each part from the sprue, cleaned up the injection gates with flush cutting tweezers and sanding sticks. These alignment tabs help keep all of the wall sections straight and make for strong glue joints. I've made several similar structures for video in the past, so I won't detail every step here, but I'll link a recent build of a similar structure in an end screen at the end of this video if you want to check it out for more detailed treatment of the assembly process of a structure like this. I will reiterate that I glue all of the parts on plastic kits like this with solvent cement. Plastruct cement works great. Their Bondine, for example, is engineered specifically for styrene and ABS plastic, so it will work on these kits. But their plastic weld is engineered for a wider range of plastics, so it will work here as well as will be the most versatile. Personally, I use MEK, which is an ingredient in many of these solvent cements, with some bits of styrene dissolved in it for filling. With the main long wall assembled, I repeated the process for the rear and side walls. When completed, this structure is 12 inches by 16 inches, or to scale, it is 160 feet by 214 feet. A good size for a modern industrial warehouse. When the wall sections were assembled and dried, I assembled the walls using the foundation strips to keep them stable and square. Some slight modifications of some of the end sections was necessary in order to make the corners fit properly. When all of the cement had set, I started painting the plastic structure. The structure I used as a reference was a 2-tone brown scheme, so I painted the structure with Tamiya Deck Tan first. Later I'll add Tamiya Flat Earth for the second color. It's easier to paint the main structure and doors and windows separately before assembly. I know the back wall of this structure will never be seen on my layout, so I didn't paint it, nor did I add doors or windows for now. If I ever decide to repurpose the structure, I can complete these details then for my needs at the time, but I don't anticipate this being the case. When the paint had dried to the touch, but while I was waiting for it to fully cure, I took the structure out to the layout and set it in its finalized location, and began working on the parking lot. I have a lot of these large sheets of 20 thousandths of an inch thick styrene. I picked them up at a sale somewhere many years ago. It's perfect for a parking lot like this. I started by tracing the outer edge along the fascia and cutting it to shape. The sheet wasn't quite as wide as the building, so I used the offcut to cut the added piece to complete the lot and cemented the two pieces together. When that cement had dried, I sanded the joint smooth. I also sanded the entire lot lightly with 220 grit sandpaper to create a struck concrete texture. I drew lines in a rectangular pattern that I would use to create expansion joints. I then scored these joints into the plastic with a dental pick. A couple of light passes is all that is needed. I painted the parking lot outdoors with a dark gray, plastic-safe primer from a rattle can as a base coat. When that was fully dry, I used my airbrush and Vallejo concrete colored paint to paint the final color. I was careful to allow some of the dark gray to show through, especially in the expansion joints, to give it a good textured look. This left a mottled color that is common to concrete pavement. Semi-trailer parking typically has lines like auto parking lots do. For these, I used 1/16 inch wide automotive striping tape to create the width of the line itself. This realistically is pretty wide, but honestly on the model it just looks right, so I went with it. When I had that tape marking all of the line locations, I used Tamiya tape to mask each side of the lines, then remove the auto striping tape from the middle. Notice that I used a single piece of blue painter's tape to mask the end of all of the lines. I then painted the lines with a brush using Vallejo gray-white paint. I purposely let this paint be a little sloppy, allowing a little bit of the gray color to show beneath. As soon as the paint was applied, I removed the masking tape. At this point, I returned to the structure. I masked the walls for the second color of paint, applying it to the top course and the center course of the sections of the walls. I used Tamiya tape along the paint edges to get a good straight edge, and painter's tape everywhere else. I painted the tape edges with the same deck tan that I'd used as the base color, just to seal the tape. When that had dried to the touch, I applied flat earth color. When painting structures like this, be sure to paint the top portion of the back of the walls, as this will show above the roof. When the paint had dried to the touch, I removed the masking tape. I always expect the tape will lift some spots of the original paint below, but to my pleasant surprise, this time none of the original coat of paint was damaged. I really like the way this two-tone paint came out, especially on the front wall of the structure. I wasn't happy with the way the front corners looked, so I created some trim pieces from styrene strip, painted them flat black, and glued them on with canopy glue. This really improved the appearance of the front wall. Next, it was time to turn to the basic details of the structures: doors, windows, door gaskets, stairs, and the like. I cut all of these parts from the sprues of the kit and sanded them, then secured them to paint handles, sorted by the color they would be painted. I also had some trim strips that go along the top of the wall. I should have installed these earlier and painted them with the structure, but somehow I missed them. The window frames I painted with Vallejo silver. This paint doesn't flow well through an airbrush, so I applied it with a brush. Also, whatever color is under the silver will show through the silver, but since these parts are light gray, I didn't need a base coat of paint. I used the airbrush to paint the concrete items with Vallejo concrete, the doors with Vallejo gray-white, the door gaskets with Vallejo anthracite gray, and the wall caps with Tamiya flat earth. When this paint had dried, I painted the handrail silver. The kit comes with the means to transfer one or more of the stairways with a ramp, so I added a ramp to one side of the main office door. The door and window castings simply cement from the back into place. I glued the door gaskets and bumpers to the front wall with canopy glue. I considered using the supplied roof panels, But to make them fit, they would have been a patchwork, so I decided to use a single piece of styrene. Years ago, I purchased this large package of large format evergreen models 40 thousandths thick plastic sheets. They measure 12 inches by 24 inches and have been very handy for large projects. I used my last full sheet of this plastic for this roof, so I'm going to have to resupply. I measured and cut the roof size. I knew this large roof was going to need some support, and I have a lot of these 1/4 inch square stock basswood pieces on hand, so I cut 2 to fit crossway across the structure and glued them in place with CA. I don't use CA a lot, but it is the best choice when gluing dissimilar materials like wood to plastic here. With these supports in place, I installed the roof, cementing it in place from under the sides all the way around the structure. Walthers makes great little industrial AC units, and several are supplied with the kit. I built just 2 for the roof over the office portion of the structure. They are in essence just a little box. I also built a transformer that comes with the kit. There are a number of 2-piece roof vents and small plumbing vents supplied with the kit as well. I prepped and assembled these at this point. I arranged all of the rooftop details to see what looked right and glued them in place with canopy glue. Now it was down to small details. I painted this personnel door that is molded into a wall and glued both stairways into place. I cut and installed window glazing behind the windows with canopy glue. I touched up the paint along the back of the walls above the roof. I used a black wash to weather the AC units, and I used some earth color weathering powders to weather the roof lightly. I'm not happy with the roof weathering, so I'm going to come back and give it some more attention later. These semi-tractors and trailers in the parking lot are new products from Trainworks. I'm reviewing them on my review channel, Ron's Rail Reviews, so watch for that video coming soon. I still need to paint the scenic base around this structure, add a parking lot along the right side for employee parking, and add some details, but so far I think this big structure fills this space nicely and really fits in with the industrial park feel of the Saginaw, Texas scene. If you'd like to see more about building industrial structures, including some scratch building, as well as other model railroad content, take a look at the links on your screen. Remember my Amazon Pick of the Week and other valuable links in the description down below. And join me on Fridays as I bring you even more great model railroad videos. And I'll see you on the next video. 10, Lizzie?